The morning sun cast golden rays across the busy streets of London as tourists gathered near Buckingham Palace. Among the crowd stood Marcus, a royal guard who had served for 8 years. His red uniform was perfectly pressed, and his tall bearskin hat sat firmly on his head. Marcus took his duty seriously, standing perfectly still like a statue, while hundreds of people took photos around him. That Tuesday, morning started like any other day. Marcus had been standing at his post for 2 hours, his face showing no emotion as required by his training. Children laughed and tried to make him smile. Adults posed next to him for pictures. He remained focused, his eyes scanning the area for any problems or safety concerns. Across the street, a young girl named Emma walked slowly with her white cane, tapping the ground in front of her. She was 16 years old and had been blind since birth. Emma lived nearby with her grandmother and knew these streets well. Every morning, she walked to the small bakery 3 blocks away, where she worked part-time. The smell of fresh bread and the sound of familiar voices made her feel independent and proud. Emma wore a simple blue dress and had her long brown hair tied back in a ponytail. Her white cane moved left to right as she counted her steps carefully. She had walked this route hundreds of times and felt confident. The sounds of the city filled her ears, from car engines to chattering tourists, from street musicians to the distant sound of Big Ben shimming. As Emma approached the crosswalk near the palace, something unusual happened. A street performer had set up his equipment in a different spot than normal. The loud music confused Emma's sense of direction. She stopped for a moment, tilting her head to listen more carefully. The traffic light turned green for cars, but Emma thought she heard the beeping sound that meant it was safe for pedestrians to cross. Marcus noticed the girl immediately. His trained eyes caught the white cane and the uncertain way she stood at the curb. He watched as she took one step forward, then another. His heart began to race. A delivery truck was speeding down the road, its driver distracted by his phone. The truck was not going to stop. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. Emma stepped off the curb, believing she was safe. The truck roared closer, now just seconds away. Tourists screamed and pointed, but they were too far away to help. Marcus knew he had only one choice. He had to break his post, something guards were strictly forbidden to do except in emergencies. Without thinking about the consequences to his career, Marcus dropped his rifle and ran. His heavy boots pounded against the pavement. His bearskin hat fell off his head, but he did not stop. He reached Emma just as she took her 3rd step into the street. The truck's horn blared loudly, and brakes screeched against the road. Marcus grabbed Emma around her waist and pulled her back onto the sidewalk. They both fell backward onto the concrete as the truck rushed past them, missing them by inches. The wind from the truck blew Emma's hair across her face. Her white cane clattered onto the street, crushed under the truck's heavy wheels. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the crowd erupted in gasps and shouts. Emma sat on the ground, breathing heavily, her heart pounding in her chest. She did not understand what had just happened. One moment she was crossing the street, and the next moment someone had pulled her back. Strong arms were still around her, making sure she was safe. Marcus helped Emma sit up properly on the sidewalk. His hands were shaking from the adrenaline, but he kept his voice calm and steady. He could feel her trembling under his touch, and he knew she must be terrified and confused. "Are you all right, miss?" Marcus asked gently, his voice filled with genuine concern. "You almost walked into traffic. A truck was coming straight at you." Emma's face turned pale as she realized how close she had come to death. Her hands reached out, trying to understand where she was and who was speaking to her. "My cane," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need my cane. I cannot see without it." Marcus looked at the broken pieces of white cane scattered across the street and felt his heart sink. "I am very sorry," he said softly. "The truck ran over it. It is broken now." That cane was not just a tool for her. It was her independence, her freedom, her way of moving through the world. Without it, she felt completely lost and helpless. "How will I get home?" she asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "How will I get to work?" "I saved for months to buy that cane." The crowd of tourists began gathering around them, with phones recording everything. Some people were crying, moved by what they had just witnessed. Others were talking excitedly about the brave guard who had abandoned his post to save a life. Several people started clapping. Soon the entire crowd was applauding Marcus for his heroic action. But Marcus was not thinking about being a hero. He was looking at this frightened young girl who needed help. He noticed his commanding officer pushing through the crowd, and Marcus knew he was about to face serious consequences. Royal guards were never supposed to leave their posts. The rules were clear and strict. He could lose his job, face disciplinary action, or be removed from the palace guard permanently. Captain Richardson, stern man with gray hair and sharp eyes, reached them quickly. He looked at Marcus with a mixture of anger and confusion. "Guard Thompson, what is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "You abandoned your post. You dropped your weapon. You have violated protocol." Marcus stood up straight, helping Emma to her feet as well. He kept one hand on her arm to steady her. "Sir, this young lady was about to be hit by a truck. I had to act immediately. There was no time to follow proper procedure." Several tourists began speaking up, telling the captain how Marcus had saved Emma's life. They showed him videos on their phones of the near accident. The captain's expression softened slightly as he watched the footage. He could see how close Emma had come to being killed and how quickly Marcus had responded. Emma stood quietly, listening to everything happening around her. She felt embarrassed that she had caused such a problem. "Please do not punish him," she said, her voice growing stronger. "He saved my life. I should have been more careful. The music confused me and I thought the crossing signal had changed. This is my fault, not his." The captain looked at Emma with sympathy. He had a daughter about her age, and the thought of something happening to her made his chest tighten. "Young lady, you have nothing to apologize for," he said kindly. "The guard did the right thing. A life is more valuable than any rule or protocol." Marcus felt relief wash over him, but it was quickly replaced by worry for Emma. "Sir, her cane was destroyed. She cannot get home safely without assistance. May I have permission to help her?" Captain Richardson thought for a moment. There were procedures for everything, but this was an unusual situation. The press was already filming, and the story would be everywhere by evening. He made a quick decision. "You have 1 hour, Thompson. Make sure she gets home safely. Then report back to me immediately." Emma felt grateful, but also uncomfortable. She did not want to be a burden to anyone. "You do not have to do this," she told Marcus. "I can call my grandmother. She will come get me." "I want to help," Marcus insisted. "Please, let me walk you home. It is the least I can do after your cane was broken. Besides, these streets are very crowded today with tourists. It would make me feel better knowing you arrived safely." Emma nodded slowly, accepting his offer. Marcus picked up his rifle and handed it to another guard, then retrieved his fallen bearskin hat. He offered Emma his arm, and she held onto it carefully. Together, they began walking away from the palace, leaving behind the amazed crowd and the dozens of cameras still recording their every move. As Marcus and Emma walked slowly down the street, an awkward silence hung between them. Marcus was still wearing his formal red uniform, and people stared at them as they passed. Some tourists recognized him from moments earlier and smiled approvingly. Emma held onto his arm tightly, counting her steps carefully and listening to the sounds around her. "My name is Marcus, by the way," he said, trying to break the uncomfortable silence. "Marcus Thompson. I have been a royal guard for 8 years now." "I am Emma," she replied quietly. "Emma Clark. I have lived in London my whole life. I work at Sullivan's Bakery 3 blocks from here. That is where I was going when... Her voice trailed off, not wanting to finish the sentence. Marcus noticed how her grip tightened on his arm when they approached another crosswalk. He could feel her anxiety. "Do not worry," he said reassuringly. "I will tell you when it is safe to cross. The light is still red for us now." They waited together, and Marcus described everything happening around them. He told her about the flower shop on the corner with bright yellow roses in the window. He mentioned the small dog being walked by an elderly man. He described the red double-decker bus passing by. Emma listened carefully, and a small smile appeared on her face. "You are very observant," she said. "Most people do not notice such small details." "It is part of my training," Marcus explained. Guards must always be aware of everything happening around them. We are taught to notice even the smallest unusual thing that might indicate danger. They crossed the street safely, and Emma began to relax a little. "Can I ask you something?" she said hesitantly. "Will you really get in trouble for helping me? I heard your captain say you violated protocol." Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer honestly. "I might face some consequences. Yes. But I would make the same choice again without hesitation. Some rules are important, but protecting human life is more important than any rule ever written." Emma felt tears forming in her eyes again, but this time they were different tears. She was moved by his kindness and his willingness to risk his career for a stranger. "Thank you," she whispered. "I do not know what would have happened if you had not been there." "Do not think about it," Marcus said gently. "You are safe now. That is all that matters." As they continued walking, Emma began telling Marcus about her life. She explained how she had been born blind due to a rare genetic condition. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 12, and she had lived with her grandmother ever since. Her grandmother, Margaret, was 78 years old and had arthritis. So Emma tried to be as independent as possible to avoid being a burden. "That is why the cane was so important to me," Emma said sadly. "It took me months to save enough money for a good quality one. I do odd jobs at the bakery, packaging bread and organizing supplies by touch. The owner, Mr. Sullivan, is very kind. He pays me fairly, even though I work slower than others." Marcus felt deep admiration for this young woman. Despite all her challenges, she worked hard and tried to take care of her elderly grandmother. "You are very brave," he told her sincerely. "Living independently, when you cannot see, must be incredibly difficult." Emma shrugged. "It is the only life I have ever known. I do not think of myself as brave. I just do what I need to do to survive and help my grandmother. She took me in when no one else would. The least I can do is try not to be a burden to her." They turned onto a quieter residential street, lined with old brick buildings. Emma's steps became more confident here because she knew this area perfectly. "We are almost there," she said. "I live in the building with the blue door, fourth one on the left." Marcus guided her carefully up the front steps. The building was old but well-maintained, with flower boxes in the windows and a freshly painted door. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out her key, but her hands were still shaking from the earlier incident, and she struggled to find the keyhole. "Here, let me help," Marcus offered, gently taking the key and unlocking the door for her. Before they could enter, an elderly woman appeared in the doorway. Her white hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore a floral dress with a cardigan. Her face showed immediate concern when she saw Emma with a royal guard and noticed her granddaughter's distressed appearance. "Emma, what happened?" Margaret asked urgently, pulling her granddaughter into a protective embrace. "Why are you home early? Where is your cane? And why is there a palace guard with you?" Marcus stood respectfully as Emma explained everything that had happened. As the story unfolded, Margaret's face went through multiple emotions, from fear to relief to gratitude. When Emma finished speaking, Margaret turned to Marcus with tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. "You saved her life," Margaret said, her voice breaking with emotion. "You saved my precious granddaughter. How can I ever thank you enough?" Marcus felt uncomfortable with all the gratitude and praise. He was not the kind of person who sought recognition or thanks. "Please, Mrs. Clark, anyone would have done the same thing. I was just in the right place at the right time." "No," Margaret said firmly, shaking her head. "Not everyone would have risked their career and broken important rules to save a stranger. You are a special kind of person, young man." Margaret insisted that Marcus come inside for tea, but he politely declined, explaining that he needed to report back to Captain Richardson within the hour. However, Margaret would not take no for an answer. "Just 5 minutes," she pleaded. "Please, let me at least give you something to drink. You must be thirsty after everything that happened." Marcus checked his watch and realized he still had 30 minutes remaining. He agreed to come inside briefly. The apartment was small but cozy, filled with old photographs and handmade quilts. Everything was organized perfectly, with nothing out of place. Marcus understood that this organization was necessary for Emma to navigate her home safely. Margaret brought tea and homemade biscuits, insisting Marcus sit down and eat something. As he sat in the comfortable armchair, Emma settled on the sofa nearby, still looking shaken from her experience. Margaret kept looking at her granddaughter with worried eyes, as if she might disappear if she looked away. "I do not know what I would do if something happened to Emma," Margaret said quietly. Sitting down beside her granddaughter and taking her hand, "She is all I have left in this world. When her parents died, I promised them I would take care of her forever." Emma squeezed her grandmother's hand. "And I promised I would take care of you too, Grandma. That is why I work so hard to be independent. But now my cane is gone, and I do not know how I will manage." Marcus felt terrible seeing them both so worried. He knew that a replacement cane would be expensive. From what Emma had told him during their walk, money was very tight in their household. An idea began forming in his mind, but he needed time to think it through properly. "Mrs. Clark," Emma, Marcus said seriously, "I want you to know that I will help you get a new cane. Please let me do this. The old cane was destroyed because I pulled Emma back onto the sidewalk. In a way, I feel responsible." "Absolutely not," Emma said immediately, her voice firm despite her usual gentle demeanor. "You saved my life. You do not owe me anything. I will not let you pay for my cane." Margaret nodded in agreement with her granddaughter. "Emma is right. You have already done more than enough. We will manage somehow. We always do." Marcus could see their pride and independence, and he respected it. He decided not to push the issue right now, but he had no intention of letting the matter drop. He would find a way to help them, even if they did not want to accept charity directly. They talked for a few more minutes, and Marcus learned more about their lives. Margaret had been a school teacher before retiring, and she told wonderful stories about her students over the years. Emma shared her dream of one day opening her own small business, perhaps selling baked goods from home. She had a talent for baking, and her sense of smell and touch made her especially good at knowing when things were perfectly done. "Blindness does not stop me from doing what I love," Emma explained to Marcus. "It just means I have to do things differently than other people. I have learned to use my other senses to compensate. I can tell when bread is ready by the sound it makes when I tap it. I can tell if cake batter is the right consistency by how it feels. My grandmother says my pastries are the best she has ever tasted." Marcus smiled, genuinely impressed by her determination and positive attitude. "I would love to try your baking sometime," he said sincerely. Emma's face brightened with a real smile for the first time since the accident. "Then you must come back and visit us again. I will bake something special for you to thank you properly for saving my life." Margaret looked at Marcus with knowing eyes. She had lived long enough to recognize a good person when she met one, and she could see that Marcus genuinely cared about what happened to Emma. "Yes, please come visit us again," Margaret added warmly. "You are welcome in our home, anytime." Marcus checked his watch and realized he had already been there for 25 minutes. He needed to leave immediately, or he would be late reporting back to the captain. He stood up quickly, thanking them for the tea and biscuits. As he walked toward the door, Emma called out to him. "Marcus, wait. I need to ask you something important. That captain of yours, will he really punish you for helping me?" Marcus turned back, trying to look confident, even though he was worried about exactly that question. "I honestly do not know what will happen," he admitted. "But whatever the consequences are, I can accept them. I did the right thing, and that is what matters most to me." Emma stood up and walked carefully toward his voice. She reached out her hand, and Marcus took it gently. "Promise me something," she said seriously. "Promise that if you get in trouble because of me, you will tell me. I will go to your captain myself and explain everything. I will make sure he understands that you are a hero, not someone who should be punished." Marcus was touched by her concern for him. "I promise," he said, "but I do not think it will come to that. Try not to worry about me. Just focus on staying safe, and please be extra careful when you go outside until you get a new cane." Marcus rushed back to the palace, his mind racing with thoughts about Emma and what consequences awaited him. When he arrived, Captain Richardson was waiting in his office with a stern expression on his face. Marcus stood at attention, preparing himself for whatever punishment was coming. "Sit down, Thompson," the captain said, gesturing to a chair. This surprised Marcus because guards usually received discipline while standing. Marcus sat down carefully, trying to read the captain's mood. Captain Richardson pulled out his tablet and turned it toward Marcus. The screen showed dozens of news articles and social media posts. "You have become famous," the captain said. "The story of the royal guard who saved the blind girl is everywhere. It has been shared millions of times in just the past hour." Marcus watched as the captain scrolled through videos of the rescue. Every major news outlet was covering the story. People from around the world were commenting, calling Marcus a hero and praising his quick action. The video showed the exact moment he ran from his post, grabbed Emma, and pulled her to safety just before the truck passed. "I did not do it for attention, sir," Marcus said quietly. "I just did what needed to be done." "I know that," Captain Richardson replied, his voice softening. "That is exactly why this story is so powerful. People can see that you acted instinctively to save a life, with no thought for yourself or the consequences. However, we still need to address the protocol violation." Marcus's heart sank. He had hoped the positive publicity might help his case, but the captain was right. Rules were rules, and he had broken several important ones. "I understand, sir. I am prepared to accept whatever punishment you decide is appropriate." The captain was silent for a long moment, and Marcus could see him wrestling with a difficult decision. Finally, Captain Richardson spoke. "Technically, you should face disciplinary action. You abandoned your post, dropped your weapon, and left your position without permission. These are serious violations that cannot be ignored." Marcus nodded, accepting his fate. "Yes, sir. I understand completely." "However," the captain continued, "there are exceptions to every rule. The safety of civilians is always our primary concern. You saw an imminent threat to human life, and you responded appropriately. After reviewing the footage and consulting with my superiors, we have decided that no formal punishment will be issued." Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate your understanding." But there is more," Captain Richardson said, allowing himself a small smile. "Your actions have brought tremendous positive attention to the palace guard. People around the world are talking about your bravery and compassion. The royal family themselves have heard about what you did, and they want to recognize you formally for your heroic action." Marcus was stunned. He had never expected anything like this. "Sir, I do not need recognition. I just wanted to help that girl." "That is precisely why you deserve it," the captain said. "Tomorrow, there will be a small ceremony. You will receive a commendation for valor and service above the call of duty. The press will be there, and it will be a good opportunity to show the world what the Royal Guard truly represents." That night, Marcus could not sleep. He kept thinking about Emma and how she was managing without her cane. He also worried about the upcoming ceremony and all the attention it would bring. He was a private person who preferred to stay in the background, and the thought of being in the spotlight made him uncomfortable. The next morning, Marcus put on his dress uniform and prepared for the ceremony. When he arrived at the palace, he was surprised to see Emma and Margaret in the audience. Someone had contacted them and invited them to attend. Emma wore a pretty yellow dress, and Margaret sat beside her holding her hand. The ceremony was brief but meaningful. A senior official read a statement praising Marcus's quick thinking and brave action. They presented him with a medal and a certificate. Photographers took pictures, and reporters asked questions. Through it all, Marcus remained humble, insisting that anyone would have done the same thing. After the ceremony, Marcus went directly to Emma and Margaret. "I am so glad you could come," he said warmly. "It means a lot to have you here. We would not have missed it for anything," Margaret said, beaming with pride. "You are a true hero, Marcus Thompson." Emma reached out and found Marcus's hand. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "After your story went viral yesterday, something amazing happened. Hundreds of people started donating money to help me get a new cane. A company that makes special mobility devices even offered to give me their best cane for free. They said they were inspired by your courage and wanted to help me." Marcus felt overwhelmed with happiness. "Emma, that is wonderful news. I am so relieved that you will have a proper cane again." "But that is not all," Emma continued, her smile growing wider. So many people donated that there is money left over, much more than we need for just a cane. People have been so generous. One person even offered to pay for surgery that might help me see again. The doctor said there is a new procedure, and I might be a good candidate for it. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. He had hoped to help Emma somehow, but he never imagined the rescue would lead to something like this. Emma, that is incredible. Are you going to do the surgery? Emma nodded, her face glowing with hope. The doctors say there is only a 40% chance it will work, but even a small chance is more than I have ever had before. For the first time in my life, I might be able to see colors and faces and sunsets. I might be able to see your face, Marcus, and thank you properly for everything you have done. 3 months passed, and Marcus and Emma had become close friends. He visited them every week, always bringing fresh flowers for Margaret and spending hours talking with Emma about everything from books to music to their dreams for the future. He was there when Emma received her new advanced cane, celebrating with her as she practiced using its improved features. The day of Emma's surgery finally arrived. Marcus had requested time off from his duties so he could be at the hospital with Emma and Margaret. The procedure would take several hours, and there were no guarantees it would work. The doctors had explained that even if the surgery was successful, Emma might only gain partial vision, or the results might fade over time. Marcus sat in the waiting room with Margaret, holding her hand as she prayed quietly. "She is so brave," Margaret whispered. "Even though she is terrified, she never complains. She just keeps saying that at least she tried, that at least she gave herself a chance. She gets her strength from you," Marcus said gently. "You raised her to be independent and brave. You should be very proud of her." The hours passed slowly. Margaret dozed off occasionally from exhaustion and stress. Marcus stayed alert, jumping up every time a doctor or nurse walked by. Finally, after 6 long hours, Emma's surgeon came out to speak with them. His face was unreadable, and Marcus felt his stomach twist with anxiety. The surgery went well, the doctor said, and Marcus saw Margaret's whole body relax with relief. "We will not know for certain if it was successful until we remove the bandages in a few days. But everything went according to plan. She is in recovery now, and you can see her soon." When they were allowed into Emma's room, Marcus was struck by how small and vulnerable she looked in the hospital bed. Her eyes were covered with thick bandages, and she was still groggy from the anesthesia. But when she heard their voices, she smiled weakly. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Will I be able to see?" "We will know in a few days, sweetheart," Margaret said, kissing her granddaughter's forehead. "But the doctor said everything went perfectly. Now you just need to rest and heal." Marcus stayed at the hospital until late that night, only leaving when the nurses insisted that Emma needed to sleep. Over the next few days, he visited every day after his guard duties, bringing Emma audiobooks and describing everything happening outside her hospital window. He told her about the changing autumn leaves, the children playing in the park across the street, and the elderly couple who came to feed the birds every afternoon. Finally, the day came to remove the bandages. The doctor warned them again not to get their hopes too high. Even if the surgery had worked, Emma's vision might be blurry or limited. It would take time for her brain to learn how to process visual information after a lifetime of blindness. Marcus and Margaret stood on either side of Emma's bed, each holding one of her hands. The doctor slowly unwrapped the bandages, layer after layer, until finally Emma's eyes were exposed. She kept them closed, afraid to open them and discover the surgery had failed. "Take your time," the doctor said softly. "When you are ready, open your eyes slowly. The light might be overwhelming at first." Emma took a deep breath, and Marcus felt her hand trembling in his. Slowly, very slowly, she opened her eyes. At first, she squinted against the light, even though the room had been dimmed in preparation. Then her eyes began to adjust, and Marcus watched as her expression changed from fear to wonder to pure joy. "I can see light," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "I can see shapes. Everything is blurry, but I can see something." It worked. The surgery actually worked. Tears streamed down everyone's faces. Margaret sobbed openly, clutching her granddaughter and thanking God. The doctor smiled. clearly moved by Emma's reaction. Marcus stood quietly, overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude that Emma had been given this precious gift. As the days passed, Emma's vision improved gradually. She would never have perfect eyesight, and she would always need glasses and assistance in low light. But she could see colors and faces and words. She could read books with large print. She could see the flowers Marcus brought each week. Most importantly, she could see the faces of the two people she loved most in the world. The first time Emma's eyes focused clearly on Marcus's face, she stared at him for a long moment. "You look exactly how I imagined," she said softly, reaching up to touch his cheek. Kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for saving my life and giving me the chance to see the world." Marcus took her hand and held it gently. "You do not need to thank me anymore," he said. "Your friendship has given me more than I ever gave you. You taught me that true courage is not about following orders or standing still in a uniform. It is about living fully, despite challenges, about never giving up hope, and about the importance of human connection." 6 months after the surgery, Emma opened her own small bakery with the money people had donated. She called it Second Sight Bakery to honor her journey from blindness to vision. The shop became famous not just for Emma's delicious pastries, but for the inspiring story behind it. People came from all over London to buy her cakes and cookies and to meet the brave young woman who had overcome so much. Marcus continued his work as a royal guard. But now he had a new tradition. Every Sunday, he would visit Second Sight Bakery in his civilian clothes. Emma would have fresh scones waiting for him, and they would sit together drinking tea and talking about their week. Margaret would join them, knitting in her favorite chair by the window. One Sunday evening, as golden sunlight filled the bakery and the last customers had left, Marcus gathered his courage to say something he had been thinking about for months. "Emma, I need to tell you something important. Over these past months, you have become one of the most important people in my life. Your strength and kindness have changed me in ways I cannot fully explain. I wonder if maybe when you are ready, you might consider letting our friendship become something more." Emma set down her teacup and looked directly at Marcus with her clear-seeing eyes. She smiled, that warm smile he had come to love. "Marcus Thompson, I have been waiting for you to say those words for weeks now. Yes, I would like that very much. You saved my life that day by the palace, but you did something even more important. You showed me that there are still truly good people in the world. People who act with courage and compassion even when no one is watching." As they sat together in the peaceful bakery, with Margaret beaming happily in the background, Marcus realized that sometimes the most important moments in life come from unexpected places. A single act of courage, one split-second decision to help a stranger, had led to friendship, healing, hope, and now love. The royal guard, who had been trained to stand still and show no emotion, had learned the most valuable lesson of all, that being truly human means being willing to break the rules when compassion calls, and that real heroism is not about medals or ceremonies, but about showing up for the people who matter day after day with an open heart.